Hey, how's it going? This is Safa1. I just wanted to give some thoughts, my opinions about gear in general, and what I think about gear. Basically, I think that you can make music with anything. Well, that's what they're designed for in the first place. Or else, why would all these companies make all these products? So people can use them and make music. That's very obvious. But what I find is there are discussions about how there are different gear coming out, pieces of gear coming out that do the same thing or similar things than previously made gear. And I think that, of course, companies need to make money, so they have to come out with new things in order for people to buy them. And they don't make any profit from people reselling them, obviously, but the hype is there and they get new customers that want more of their products, which makes total sense. And I don't think that gear makes you a better producer or musician. I think it enhances what you already know and how you already make music in some ways, whether it's limited gear, whether the gear has limitations or not. I think that's also irrelevant. But the discussion behind gear that has limitations will, in some way, shape, or form, make you more creative because of the limitations that it presents and how you have to think in different ways while creating on those limited devices. So I think the most important thing to know about using gear in general or hardware like DAWless setup is just how you feel about it and why you choose to use it. For example, I just recently got a used SP404 and I had to really dig through YouTube on how to use it because I wasn't sure. It wasn't like it doesn't even have a play and stop button. It's just sequences or patterns that you make that you choose. And then I don't know about if there's any mute or unmute when you're trying to sequence a track, but you can make different sequences of the same track and copy paste and take stuff out while it's copied onto a sequence, I guess. So I'm still learning the SP404, but it's just a different workflow that I've never used. But for example, the Roland P6 that I bought, I think it's a much simpler workflow in the sense you're limited obviously to how much sounds can go into one track and one sequence, but because it will eventually be too much, you can't put more into it because it's like a CPU issue kind of thing. But I think it's a way more straightforward workflow where you have six tracks or a little bit more if you can use the other banks, and then you have to just make a beat out of whatever you have. And it doesn't have an SD card, but muting stuff is shift and mute. It's two buttons and it's very simple and straightforward. Whereas something like the MPC-1 or MPC, the newer MPC models, you can make almost endless amounts of tracks on it as far as the CPU can handle. And they're more limitless in a sense where it's kind of more like a computer, but it's still technically DAWless. But I think that no matter if you use gear or if you use software, it really doesn't matter. Most of the time, people that are listening to it and enjoying the music, they could care less what you're using, of course. But people that are already making music and creating music. They're more interested in the process of making it. And I think that's a very important thing as well. To know how something was made is interesting, because you want to figure out why they chose that piece of gear and then how they made it. Of course, if you're wondering, because like for example, making beats on an SP404, I think is very interesting, because you have certain limitations, but then you can add, there are limitations to it, but there are also benefits to using it. And what it comes down to is just mostly personal preference, of course. You could even just use a phone and apps like Koala app to just make beats on. And I think it's just like, for example, like Ableton came out with a new hardware gear called Move, and I think that it's a interesting move for them, no pun intended, but like Ableton is a software company that happens to now make a hardware piece of gear that's standalone and doesn't require you to use Ableton software at all. And I think it's very interesting to have companies like that make gear that are catered towards people that are not interested in using a computer or software. So, and I think it's cool of them to do, in the sense, like, of course they're gonna hop on that bandwagon and try to make money. And I know someone that's using it, and I've looked at some videos on the Ableton Move, and I think it's a cool piece of gear, of course. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what you use, in my opinion. It's just you as the producer. Who are you, and how are you making the music? What sounds are you choosing? If anything, the most important thing is your sound selection. Arguably, that's it. And then, of course, the technical aspects of, can you get a decent mix off of what you're using? Can you use some filters or EQs to get a good enough mix? And that's all up to you. It's not about the gear that you use. The gear makes it more convenient for you as a producer and speeds up the workflow, or it can slow you down. So it really just depends on you at the end of the day, how much you're willing to put in effort of learning that piece of gear, how much you're willing to put in effort using that gear to make music with or play live sets with, for example. And essentially the most important thing about making music is just how enjoyable it is. If you're enjoying the process of making music, then that's, I think, a win. And if you're not enjoying the music making process, then you can't always just blame it on a piece of gear. You have to look at yourself and think, okay, am I the one who is not enjoying this because of my own personal beliefs and limitations, or is it because I just blame gear and don't want to get, or even software, and don't want to get over the learning curve of making music using those products? Anyways, I just wanted to give my 2 cents about this DAW-less discussion and software discussion. I was just looking at YouTube and how John makes beats. I follow him and I like his content a lot, and he's talking about one of his recent videos about how he chooses not to use a computer even though he has for years. And that's basically my 2 cents. I hope you enjoy this content, and peace out.